Hey everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining today. If you've been here all week, this is the fourth day. We've been kind of covering really just my branding process. I think that's really the only thing I kind of know how to speak to. I know there's lots of different ways to do this, and this is just kind of the way it is now. And like I said, kind of it's always good to kind of just look at your processes and reevaluate sometimes and be open to learning new ways to do it. So like I said, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about really kind of mock-ups, which are pretty simple, not like too difficult, but there's like some certain things that I like try and do to cater to the clients a little bit. And then yeah, so if you've been with us, we've kind of talked about the first day we walked through my branding process, and with this like Edward & Co. golf brand that I worked on a few years back. And then the following day, on day two, we did some live, like vectoring, like specifically the pen tool and Illustrator for lettering. But obviously a lot of those things can, apply to anything you're doing in Illustrator with the pen tool. And yesterday we worked on some badges, which is always a fun one. I always enjoy doing badges. Just some like additional designs to go with our branding. So today we're just going to kind of like look at how to bring the branding and the badges and the colors and how to bring that together into some final mock-ups to present to our clients. I think it's just really good to give our clients context. It helps them see the brand come to life, especially like one things I've learned, especially with rebrands, is that sometimes the clients have a hard time visualizing the new brand. They've only seen their brand a certain way for however many years. So it can be difficult for them to like look at it with open eyes, even though they hired you and they want you, to rebrand. It can just be difficult for them to like picture what it is with a new brand. So mock-ups are like a perfect way to really just kind of show them that brand come to life so that they can actually start to see it and visualize it. We kind of know as designers like what the capabilities and the possibilities are with the brand, but the client doesn't often or can't visualize that or can't anticipate or see what that's going to be. So there's always like Adobe stock is a great place to go for like mock-ups. I mean, there's literally everything on there. I mean, you guys all know this. It's super simple and easy to use, and there's lots of good mockups on there. I do use that quite a bit. For today, we're going to do something a little like I'm not using images from there today, but I certainly always try and go there and look for stuff. So let's pop over to other screen, and we'll kind of like just kind of touch base on where we are with this brand. So let's click on that. All right. So Edward & Co., like I said, it's a golf brand, apparel brand. That's really when I got hired to do this brand, we knew that we were going to be doing apparel and just other stuff, swag and stuff like that to go along with it. The whole goal is to sell that stuff. And so here's the, once again, logo. We have the secondary logo that's the condensed mark and the monogram, and these are all like great options that we can like simply throw these on a t-shirt or stickers and stuff like that. That's really easy. We also have the mascot that we talked about. Actually his name's Bob. Brian named him after me, which is super flattering. I wish my golf swing was that good looking, but it's not. So we have the mascot, and then we have obviously the full logo with the tagline, "Look the par." We'll be using that. We'll be using the brand colors. And then the badges. So this is kind of where these things were specifically designed for apparel. Like I said, they're not necessarily logos. Like, we have the main logo and the secondary logo and then the monogram. These weren't designed to be logos, but they were literally designed with, the brand in mind and with the brand fonts and all of that to be used on, apparel. So which is nice. We have like a good range of stuff here, and that's also makes it easy for when we're kind of like designing out a launch. A lot of times when we're doing apparel, we're doing like a spring or fall launch, and that can play into certain colors we use sometimes, or fabrics and stuff like that. These are all things that we consider. When I first started in design, I worked for a small print shop, and what was what was kind of nice about that is that you just kind of start to think about the final product and what, what your design can be. And I think as designers, like that's one of the things we have to consider is what is the end goal with this product? Because that can heavily influence, what the design is. Like if it's just going to be a giant sign and it's never going to be small, then there's certain things, that if it's always going to be viewed from a distance, there's certain things that that you need to think about. And then, or vice versa, if it's going to be really small, like we need to, print that off and make sure that it works small. So we looked through these. These were just, like I said, this is kind of the end of the brand document that we showed on Monday. This is just showing like how it's a golf brand. Like this is what the options for golf balls, golf tees. These are all things that we can get custom made just like anything else. So once again, the messaging and the fonts, these are going to start to show up. Or they did show up in the badges that we did yesterday. Those are like perfect things to pull to like, fill in space, stuff like that. So when I initially presented this, the badges and the stage that we're at now, I just kind of like mock some stuff up loosely, just to give the client an idea of what they could do. Like these are possibilities. And this is really just like a conversation starter. Because at this point we knew, like I said, we knew we were going to do apparel. We hadn't really had a conversation about like specifically what that was going to be. So this was just a way for me to like basically just get the ball rolling and show the client like, hey, this is some things that we can do. So in this case, I knew that like we wanted to use something a little more like a premium product. So I just went to that specific site where we are going to use the blanks from, and I just pulled images from there so that they can actually see, what the actual artwork looks like on the product. And at this point, we hadn't decided on color. So this was back when I presented these badge options. Yeah. So when I presented all of this in the different colors, I also presented these options. So that's why you'll see there's some like different colors still in here and not the actual brand colors that we decided on. Classic black long sleeve. And this was, one of the taglines that we were using initially. Just starting to show, okay, these are the options we can do. This is what, if we want to go with this like blue and like peachy orange color, like this is what it can look like. So here's, this is an option for like, here's the condensed logo. We don't always have to use the full logo, and then how we can pair those together. So I think that's like you deliver all this stuff to a client and you're like, here's your 3 logos, here's your 12 badges, or, tertiary designs. And here you go. Like it's good to show the client like what we can actually do with them, how they actually pair together. So like I said, here's the condensed logo on the front. Here's one of the badges on the back. And then from there, what we did is after that basically had started the conversation with the client. And from there, we started talking about specifically what he wanted to do. It was going to be a limited launch. We were going to do some hats and 2 short sleeve options and a long sleeve option. I think we ended up adding on to that and doing a sweatshirt and some other stuff later. But the first one was just going to be some hats and like specific kind of hats. Like luckily, like Brian, the client knew exactly what he wanted. So that was super helpful. So we started with this kind of like standard like tour hat. If you are a fan of golf, you kind of recognize this hat. Like it has a taller, kind of like flat bill, taller front, allows you to get like the logo as big as possible on there. And that's kind of what he wanted. And it's the 3D embroidered, which is always cool. So we're kind of showing him options like, okay, here's that hat. Here's what we can do. Like literally main logo. If you want it to be bigger, we can do the condensed, the secondary logo. We can also do the monogram, and then just starting to show like, oh, if we're going to do the main or secondary logo, then we can put the monogram on the side, because that's always a place. Like we don't have to use the fronts of things. We can, if all of us wear products all the time, So you just start to like take note of how other companies utilize products, and then all those things are available to us too. And it like it just gives you a lot of options. So even then down here, like, so if we switch to the monogram, then we'll do the logo on the side, and then putting, it's a new brand. So one of the things we wanted to try and do was keep the brand out there, or like put the URL on things. Like we didn't want to like plaster it all over the place, but we, this nice little subtle like arched embroidery over the top of the hat. So standard hat. You also want to do like a dad, like the dad hat, like the flimsy, unstructured hat with the, it's got a little different clasp. So like literally at this point, like I'm researching styles of hats, and the more, like we've done a little bit, through Inch by Inch that we talked about yesterday, the nonprofit that I co-run, and just doing this business for a long time and making lots of products, especially in, t-shirts and stuff like that. You start to get a feel for what companies you like and who makes a good product and who makes like a consistent product, because that's always an issue, is consistency in sizing and just quality and production. So at this point, like I'm researching, hats, and I'm finding specific styles of hats. So not only am I delivering mock-ups to my client, but I'm also giving them like, hey, this is a great hat. This brand, makes a good product. It comes in lots of colors. We had decided that we were going to go black and white with all this stuff, so that made it easy. But so there's a research side of these things too. I have some of these saved in a folder for myself that I can pull. I also have like, vector versions of stuff like this. It's more of like a generic hat that I use quite a bit. And I think for me, I find myself like just saving that stuff in a folder, and I'll go back to that well often, and because it's simple. And I'm just trying, like I said, this is very specific, but early on the branding stuff when I'm presenting it is just more like, hey, this is what we can do. So that's that. And then this is like I said, it's a little bit more specific. So dad hat, this we wanted to be a patch. So we have like, this oval patch, circle monogram patch, or like a leather, laser cut patch, just trying to show him options. Fortunately, he's done a lot of this stuff, so he knows like what's available out there, and he just was great to work with and kind of knew what he wanted, so that was super helpful. And then just some other options, like, hey, if we wanted to do something different, we can do a colored patch and do one of the badges as an actual like sewn patch. We could do a smaller, not quite as like, this one's pretty loud, like the tour hat style for golf. Like it's like, how big can I get my logo? Like, because they want it to be seen when they're on TV. So this one's like a little more subtle. Like we could do like a smaller embroidered, and we're starting to show him like, here's some color options. If we do this color patch, we could do a green on the side, starting to bring in some of the like additional elements. And one thing I didn't talk about, we can go back real quick. Some of the stuff on the bottom, like the golf tees and the like making an E, like that's pretty self-explanatory, but like this E and C and this E and C are like supposed to resemble like a scorecard. So if you don't know golf, like when you get a birdie, which is like one shot less than par, you circle it. If you get a bogey, one shot over par, you put a rectangle around it, and so on. And like triangle, albatross, which is, so when I'm designing these things out, like I'm thinking about like, how can I bring golf elements into this brand? So these like random shapes down here, I didn't really explain that before, weren't for, they weren't just like haphazard, like, being intentional about, what that, and trying to tie it into the meaning of what the company is. So let's go back here real quick. So starting to bring in some of those like smaller elements and showing how that works. Like here's the ampersand. This is one thing we just thought could be cool, is pulling the ampersand, since it's custom and designed specifically for the brand, that we could use that as a recognizable, brand element too. And we're still, reinforcing that with the logo on the side and the URL on the back. So then here it's like, we knew we wanted to do like a standard logo tee. And also you can kind of see down here, you'll see these like little pops of color. We wanted to do like a hem tag because we wanted this to be like a quality, we want to feel like a little bit extra care. and a little more quality to it. So we're doing these like little hem tags. We kind of landed on the this like red, the hazard red, I think is what it's called. Maybe sounds good if I remember right. We landed on that. We just thought that it popped off the black really well. So that's just other added elements too. Like he knew what hem tags were. He'd used those before, but for a client, if you're trying to like, hey, we can reinforce like the brand or just make it feel like it has these extra little special touches. These are, small things that, you can do, and you can just add the branding and more places. So simple logo tee. And this is kind of, we already decided we're going to do a black tee, a gray tee, and a long sleeve. So at this point, we haven't decided what design is going to be on it, but we knew that those are what we're going to do. So showing them those options, then starting to show like, okay, if we do the black tee, we could do the logo big and start to show like the badges on the back and stuff like that, if that makes sense. So I'm just kind of like picking and choosing options, and I always do like, so in this case, if the logo's on the front, like I don't need to reuse the logo on the back. Like we have all these designs that we created, so let's pull something that's going to complement that, but not be the same, not be the same thing. So at this point, I'm just trying to give him options based, so that he can make the decision, because ultimately it's up to him. Like we can advise our clients, but the clients need to be happy and satisfied with where they land. So here we're still exploring colors a little bit, showing some overprint, which is always fun. So we have the mascot, and it's like, well, we don't have to just put the mascot like real big on there. We can still get the name over it, and like by doing it, overprinting a brighter color on top of a darker color, that's going to show through. And that's just something that like just kind of have learned or taken note of over the years and seen other people do. And then long sleeve, ultimately, like we said, we ended up just kind of sticking with black and white. But here's just kind of showing like, hey, we can use the gold from the brand, and it looks great on the black too. So is there any questions so far? If you do, just pop them in the chat, and we'll try I got it pulled up, so we'll kind of take a look at those things. So if we get out of this real quick, let's see. So you can kind of see, this is just like, I always like to see people's process. So this is just kind of like a down and dirty like look behind the scenes. This is a little cleaned up from the version before, but just like literally all I'm doing is pulling the photo. I download the photo from the site. This is the actual shirt that we want to use. So I think that's important if we can do that, especially at this phase, like when we're making decisions on this is what we're actually going to use. Then at that point, it's like if we can get the actual photo and show the client what the artwork's going to look like on there to the best of our ability, which we, with the tools we have today. And I know there's a new mockup tool in the Illustrator beta that got teased out at Max last year, maybe, and then it just got released in the beta. If I'm right, someone might speak up and say if I'm wrong or not, but I think it's, from what I've seen, I haven't used it yet, but it looks incredible. It looks like it's going to give us a lot of flexibility. And honestly, like I use Illustrator to a fault. It's hard for me sometimes to get out and use, like I use InDesign and Photoshop when it's necessary, but when, I use Illustrator like 90% of the time. So what do we got? Mike seems to think that real golfers wear plaid, and I agree with that. Like I'm a big fan of plaid. I like patterns. How long does it take? Cody asks, how long does it take to typically rebrand a company? How many months do we go through with the client? For me, so one thing why I really like design is I don't know, I get bored easy, so I don't really like long projects. I have, there's a fatigue that naturally happens for both myself and the client. And so most branding projects for me are, anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks. That's kind of the sweet spot. Sometimes it stretches out, beyond that, depending on revisions and mostly like feedback from the client. That obviously plays into a big, but I try and keep everything around like 4 to 6 weeks. Sometimes it's 2. Like if I'm just doing a simple logo, not a simple logo, but if we're just doing a logo, like there's no other, like sometimes we'll just get hired, they don't want the messaging and the branded fonts and the colors and stuff like that. If it's just a logo, then, we try and get that down to like 2 or 3 weeks. But like we talked about on Monday, for me, when I'm concepting, like, the very initial like research and discovery and concepting, like I like to take, like I need the time up front to try, to concept and try and come up with like the best options for the client. And I think that's where we as creatives and as designers add the most value. Like lots of people can do production work or like, execute on a sketch or a design, but the concept is where the meaning really comes through and when the individuality comes from. And I think, often when I'm sketching, the first sketches are always like the most obvious, especially when it comes to like logos, especially with like logo, marks and stuff like that. The first sketch is always, you get like the most obvious stuff out, and you really have to like keep sketching and get as many options out as possible. And then you start to really like drill down to the, more things that are unique. So like I said, this is all, here we are. Like this is just a simple, like there's nothing to this. It's literally a square. Let's click off that. This is just literally a square, and then this here is a dashed line, and then we're dropping the monogram on top of it. So it doesn't have to be like, in this case, like it just needs, it's tiny on a larger mockup. It doesn't have to be like super realistic. It doesn't have to have texture or anything like that. We just want to show what the client, show the client what the possibilities are. As for this, there's not even these are, you can kind of see I'm showing an overlay effect here in these, but I'm not like even multiplying the design over, over the artwork. Obviously if we did that over black, it wouldn't really show up. So it's as simple as that. It really isn't like super complicated. Like you don't have to overthink mockups. Like I said, the main goal is to just show the client, and give that client like context. Context is super important when we're designing and we're trying to present a new brand. There is, someone mentioned polos. We did do some polos. So this is like a separate, these are a little more realistic in the fact that like they show, this is like a editable PSD file where you actually like drop in the vector smart object in Photoshop, and then it puts it on there. So like I said, just exploring this point, showing the clients had seen the pattern at this point, but just showing them like, hey, these are kind of the color options that we could do. And the client had some like they weighed in on this. They had some, ideas on what they wanted as far as colors. And you can see like, let's go back to this real quick. So we just have this like big document that I'll use. Like I'll tell you what, when Illustrator introduced artboards, it was like the greatest thing ever. Multiple pages. That was a game changer for me because it allowed me to do so much more in Illustrator and not have to be like an InDesign. Now, granted, if I'm doing like heavy page layout stuff and there's lots of text heavy stuff, like you can't beat InDesign for that. So just to recap, like here's the brand colors, which we're using on the apparel and stuff like that. But when it comes to actual, like these polos that are going to be custom, like cut and sewed and printed, we're looking more at like design trends and seasonal colors and stuff like that are, all going to go into and help, decide or be a part of, or part of the thinking as far as that. So is there any, if anyone has any more questions, you can pop those in there, but we'll just do like a quick little recap real quick. Maybe if I can get this. So I think we're real close on time. We're about a couple minutes left, I think. So just to recap for, this week in branding as we go back to the front. This is like the brand, the brand document. We started with, who the company is and who the audience is. The goals, like I said, a lot of times these don't change in this instance. Like, yeah, we want to design something that speaks to the like high quality and bold nature of the products. Like that all came from, the messaging or from this, these three, attributes that were defined by the client. Because ultimately, like we can weigh in on that, but the client, we're really relying on them to kind of help decide or give us the information up front. And then obviously we want to speak to our core audience. So these are the three. I feel like these 2 pages, like the brand traits and brand purpose, these are the things that really help influence design, because these are the things that we can like apply visually. So like premium and bold, like the type, like the lettering and the logo and stuff like that is bold. And then premium really shows up in the products with the hidden tags and the inside printed tags and stuff like that. And then contrarian kind of shows up in the messaging. So I really appreciate you guys hanging out this week. It's been a blast just being on here and kind of walking through my process. Yeah, just thanks for having me. Enjoy.